Beloved one, welcome. I am Kira, and together we are expanding consciousness. In this moment, I first want to say thank you for being here. And as we come together in this collective moment, this is the first time that my heart has so clearly resonated that it was time to get back on the air with you every week, right here at YouTube, at the website IamKira.net, and everywhere else that this program is carried. I want to invite us all right now at this extraordinary moment in our collective history to say yes. And let's begin by saying yes by bringing our hand to our heart. Just bring your hand to your heart. And as you do, let us engage a beautiful, deep healing breath. Let's go in through the nose, exhaling, and smiling. Because when we exhale consciously with a smile, we send a signal to our soul. We send a signal to the universe that says, I am here. I am ready. I am open. Guide me. And that's the gift of expanding consciousness. You know, you may be wondering right now, who is this woman? Well, I am Kira, as you are. And for the past over 23 years now, I have had the honor of being here with you regularly. And in this moment, what has shifted is that together, we have all now in this very second, in this breath, we have arrived at a moment of consciousness unlike any we have ever collectively discovered before. So, before I go any further, who am I? Why should you be listening to me at all? Why would anything I say matter? Well, okay, fair questions, and I'm really glad you asked. Because at the end of the day, all I am doing is offering to you the gift of my response to the world around us. Your response to the world around you, your response to the life you're living, your response to the fear and the pain and the joy and the love is uniquely yours. And in a moment where the gift of trusting yourself is becoming rarer and rarer and rarer, that's where the yoga of self-ascension lifts. It's a foundation. It's a platform. And I was very, very blessed way back when, in 2002, to have Archangel Zadkiel first appear through me. And that really all began because of something that happened in 1989. Yes, 1989. Because in 1989, I had severe uterine cancer. I was at the peak of my game as a CEO. I had been traveling 28 days a month, and it was Christmas Day Eve, which made it very poignant. Christmas Eve day, I said that inverted. And I got off a plane. I remember feeling very ill, and I woke up in a hospital, and I had a doctor inform me that not only did I have cancer and I needed to sign all these forms, that I needed emergency surgery, and that they couldn't guarantee my outcome. So imagine all of that being thrown at you when you're a mere 29 years old. Well, that experience, my near-death experience, led me and put me on the journey that has brought me here to be with you today. It was a moment where everything that I was as a child was put in front of me again. How many of you right now have either grown up in a family where you were uniquely aware of things that maybe others in your family weren't, where you had sensitivities, where you often felt a sense of more, that there has to be more, that I can do more, be more, see more? Well, I was that little child who saw your dead grandmother, who my mom used to take me aside and say, don't make my company cry, because I was an innocent little child who just ran up to people and told them what their dead grandmother wanted them to hear. And then through my years of growing up during the 60s and the 70s, that became very unpopular, and so I buried it. How many of you have buried who you are? Have you ever stopped being who you are? Have you ever hidden? Have you ever been afraid to come out and just be you? Well, that was me. And all of that crescendo happened. I became very successful in the business world very early. I was very blessed. I went to Catholic University of America. I actually got to meet the Pope. It was an incredible experience, Pope John Paul II. And all of that energy kept touching me, touching me, touching me, touching me spiritually. I knew that there was more, but yet I was so frustrated in who I was that I didn't know how to expand my consciousness, much less say anything about it. And then lo and behold, the universe had different plans. The universe said, you are who you are. And nothing's going to stop that, no matter what the mind is trying to tell you. Because in my mind, it was go to college, graduate, make money, get a family, all the things that we're taught to do. And the reality is this: if you have a destiny, which you do, we all do, everything happening in your life will conspire to keep you on track, especially if you are resisting it. And so I was just so stubborn that the universe decided I needed to die to wake up. And that's what happened in 1989. And during my near-death experience, I had the knowing and the experience of being in what many would call the Godhead. My vision was very, very much almost an affirmation of what the ancient rishis and sages already knew in the 1st century BC. So let's consider that. Here we are, and this recording, this podcast is being made in the linear time of 2025. And whenever you may get this, hundreds of years from now, or whenever, in real time, whenever you may connect with this entire series, Expanding Consciousness, is a library. It's a library of experiences that you are most likely having and may not understand. Yet, they were codified in the 1st century BC, and then later made famous with incredible people like Aldous Huxley and Spinoza, who talked about this and became known as the Perennial Philosophies. The Perennial Philosophies. So what are the Perennial Philosophies, right? Well, the Perennial Philosophies are basically a baseline of consciousness itself. It's where we all begin. It's a knowing, it's a presence, it's something that we have inside, deep within. Breathe into that, feel that. Even as I'm sharing with you right now, go beyond the mind. I'm really inviting you to go beyond the mind and feel. What are you noticing in your stomach? What are you noticing in your head? What are you noticing in your body? Because the Perennial Philosophies, and there are 3 of them, are always there. And the first one is that there is an infinite, go beyond any boundaries. There is an infinite, changeless reality beneath the world of change. What does that mean? Well, what it means, and what I certainly learned during my first near-death experience, was that you are an eternal being. That this protoplasmic jumpsuit is an illusion. It's absolutely an illusion. And it's ours to work with. It's ours to co-create with. It is our consciousness-informed awareness. Everything. And over the coming podcast, I'm going to talk about how you chose that, why you stood in line to be here now. So that's the first of the 3 Perennial Philosophies. And remember, this was all figured out in the 1st century BC. Right? BC, you gotta love that, don't you? And then you move into the second. And that second incredible perennial philosophy is that every single being, every human personality, every single being has this same core. Meaning that there is without any limitation that every single being has this changeless reality beneath the world that seeks to change you. That we are all carrying that reality is the same. Yet, we live in a world where our perception is our reality, is it not? And so how do we move beyond the world of illusionary perception? How do we become the living essence of our truth? How do we stabilize in a world of chaos? How do we discover peace? How do we discover love? How do we discover joy? Well, we discover that when we really notice and pay attention to these perennial philosophies, because here's the third. It's the one I call the kahuna, okay? The kahuna philosophy is that the purpose of life, maybe I should stop right there, right? What is the purpose of life? Okay, third perennial philosophy, 1st century BC. The purpose of life is to discover that changeless reality while you're still carrying a body of form. While you're still carrying this body of form, you can remember who you are. Outside of the fear, outside of the doubt, outside of the hesitancy, because fear, doubt, and hesitancy are the 3 seeds of sabotage, self-sabotage. We currently live in a world where the planetary thought body, right? All of us together contributing to the thoughts that are free-floating all around the planet. The predominant energy is fear. Because in the energy of fear, you will doubt. And that doubt begins with yourself. You begin with the fear and doubt of the self, thereby negating your eternal, infinite, changeless nature, number 1 of the perennial philosophies, the truth of that which you are, as I am. And this is why it is so valuable to remember, to be in the essence of expanding consciousness, to know. You know, right now, I invite you to just take a self-assessment, right? Ask yourself, am I happy? Am I honestly happy? Right? And what does happy mean? Because to answer that question, to really get honest with yourself, to say, I am happy, is to go beyond the emotional boundary of what happy is. This is the gift of consciousness itself. I'm stopping to look at you because I'm getting ready to share something with you, and it's kind of like it takes my breath away, you know? I honor those of you that have traveled with me in this public domain for the past 23 years. I honor those of you that have just shown up right now. I honor you whether you're here because you're interested, whether you're here because you're skeptical, whether you're here for whatever reason, it's irrelevant. I just honor your presence. Collectively, humanity has arisen into a level of consciousness we have not ever collectively arisen into before. So what does that mean? It means that all of us, including myself, are going to be traveling through the intensity of the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And in my case, to be here now with you, to be able to share this information, to once again fall at the knees of God and say, I am yours, has been through literally releasing everything that I thought I loved. Everything. You know, not so many years ago, I had 4 amazing dogs and a husband who had carried me through the evolutionary process, as with you, of the yoga of self-ascension. And then in 8 months, all of my dogs transitioned off the planet. And 2 weeks after my final dog left, my husband left. He went from vital and healthy and happy into a hospital, and 5 days later, into the morgue. And I share that with you because it's important for you to hear and to know that no matter what comes your way, no matter what is thrown at you, no matter what spell is cast to try to stop you, the perennial philosophies are still there and they're immutable. And the third perennial philosophy is what? It is to remember your limitless nature, to remember who you are while you are still in this body of form. The myth is that you have to die to ascend. That is one way. That is the classic way. However, what if the yoga of self-ascension is yours to embrace in your unique way through the template of consciousness itself? Okay, Kara, what are you talking about, right? I'm inviting you right now to consider yourself as the commander of your own ship. To remember that when we bring our hands to our heart, which I invite you to do that again, bring your hands to your heart. And here's a mantra I want to invite you to adopt. In this moment, I trust myself. Really breathe that in. In this moment, I trust myself. To know that no matter what is happening, that in the essence of self-trust, which is beyond a state of egoic presence. Egoic presence negates. Self-trust invites. It invites knowing. It invites self-reflection. It invites the opportunity to smile in the face of that which may crumble others. And to know that that smile is coming from a space of peace. Because peace and joy are your birthright. Now, as you breathe that in, as you really feel that, I want you to consider for a moment that you are the template of consciousness in formed awareness. Okay, what does that mean? It means that in this moment on the planet, you have chosen this body. You've chosen this hair, these eyes, this skin color, your height, your weight. All of it supports who you are. All of it is part of the rising energy. Yet, we often surrender ourselves into other aspects of the self that prevent our growth and illumination. So let me give you an example, okay? Let's get an example going here. So imagine the world right now. We live where we like linear time, right? It's this day, this month, this year. This is how we do it. This decade, it's linear, linear, linear. We make timelines. Now imagine if we take those timelines, you take one end and you take another end, and you bring them together, and you make a circle. Well, what happens then? Well, when we stand in the middle of the circle, we are able to see everything in its totality. This is the entrance of the template of consciousness. So the template of consciousness, imagine it's a clock. We imagine an old-fashioned clock as a circle with 12 at the top, 6 at the bottom, 3 and 9 on the sides, and consider that that cycle in the center carries that third perennial philosophy, the infinite nature that is yours to achieve while you are still in a body of form. Well, from that infinite nature, we arise through the template of consciousness. And how do we arise? We take a body. Now, whether or not you believe in reincarnation, whether you it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, atheist, whatever. All dogma limits. All dogma limits. So when we free ourselves and remember that this body is ours to command, it is the first truth detector. And when it's born, it is hungry, and it is cold, and it wants nourishment, and it wants peace. And so if we are born into, from this infinite well, this infinite sea, if we are born into that 12 o'clock position, and we're screaming for food and comfort and shelter, then this is that myth of humanity's fall. Because from the 12 o'clock, moving to the 3 o'clock is considered what? A fall. So we fall into our emotional body. Because our emotional body is saying, help me, help me, help me. And this is where the fear and the victim consciousness is birthed, because the emotional body is responding to a need from the physical body. And in the template of consciousness, this is seen as the first fall from the entirety of the well of consciousness into a physical form, falling into the emotional body. And when we fall into our emotional body, everything is lopsided. Love is no longer unconditional, it is conditional. Fear can be overwhelming and limiting, and our perceptions start becoming limiting beliefs until the emotional body is so overwhelmed and it's screaming, help me, help me, help me, that it falls again to the 6 o'clock position, or the mental, where the mental body says, I got this. I am the master, right? And so that 6 o'clock position of the mental body and the template of consciousness goes to work. It will justify, it will tell you why you're okay, it will do everything it can to self-preserve. And in that 6 o'clock position, it's directly across from the physical body. So the physical body and the mental body get this really strong agreement going, right? Yeah, it's all good, it's all good. Coping skills. Until one day, the mental body is like, I'm tired, I'm depressed, I'm scared, I can't do this anymore. Can I just have a moment of peace? Do you ever feel that? And that's when we start looking up. That's when we lift. That's when we go from that 6 up to the 9 o'clock, which is our spiritual nature. We gaze up at our spiritual nature, we touch our spiritual nature, and then we tend to become, I'm going to use the word addicted to our spiritual nature, because the spiritual nature is on plane with the emotional body. And so you have that physical that cries out, help me, that becomes the emotional, that reaches out to be rescued by the mental, that then lifts up and says, here's a spiritual. Yet, from the spiritual back to the 12 o'clock physical is our greatest journey and our most dangerous one. And that's where humanity is right now. We are at a moment where gazing at the template of consciousness itself matters. Because when we become the polarized energy of my team versus your team, where yes, I'm looking beyond myself, but it's only my team that matters, that polarization sets up a binding conflict. And in the perennial philosophies, what we all know is that if our experience, if our purpose of life is to remember ourselves while we are still in this body of form, if we are expanding consciousness that far, to really know that in this moment, it helps us to understand, unwind, and take proactive actions to bring stability. But that begins with ourselves. I am as you are. Imagine a world where we know each other through our highest lens. That's where this is going to take us. That's where the journey of expanding consciousness goes. Together, we are on a journey we have been traveling, yet have never gone this far with before. Imagine in this moment right now that your consciousness is expanded beyond where it will ever go. Because the next time we meet, I'm going to share the complete template of consciousness, have a notebook, and know that you are ready to remember beyond the limitations that may seek to stop you. The yoga of self-ascension is as unique as you are, and I have had the honor of living it for many years now. I invite you to learn a whole lot more about it and to visit my website, iamkira.net, and gaze through thousands of pages of free material, learn the practices, and discover the depth of what you carry. Because within you is everything you need. It's just taking a hand to your heart, bringing in that beautiful breath and remembering, in this moment, I trust myself. I love you. I honor you. And I look forward to being with you again. Many blessings.